All right. Oh, is that our theme music now?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, I love it. Okay. All right. Here you go. So, hey, welcome to the Gregory and Paul Show.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Gregory, and we break down the latest in startups, SaaS, AI, whatever the internet's debating. We aim for smart takes, but hey, we end up with a lot of dumb ones. We'll definitely hit on a few scorchers. And of course, we love memes way too much.
We're going to stream live on X and LinkedIn, then straight upload into YouTube.
And then, of course, we have a guest today. So, Imran Patel is the founder of Syft Data, a Los Angeles based startup that takes the guesswork out of B2B marketing by enabling teams with people level intent signals from web traffic. So, prior, Syft, you spent 8 years at Snap, correct? Head of
That's
engineering
correct.
growth.
Long time.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, 8 years is a long time. Check out a company like Snap. That must have been actually pretty exciting.
Yeah, we were like the company grew over 100x, I guess, in terms of its size, while me and my co-founder were there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I got to keep going. Okay, full bio. Okay. You did Snap, awesome experience. And then you're at AWS for 6 years in Bellevue, Seattle area, supporting
Where
cloud
you are
services.
now.
That's exactly. And I got this from your LinkedIn. You hold a PhD in computer science from UC Santa Barbara and is
Correct?
the inventor of multiple CDN routing patents. That's correct?
Yes, a bunch of them. Yeah.
Dude, what I took away from that was like you like California.
Yeah, I had a small break. I went to Seattle, and then like I kind of, I was there for a while, but then I think I came back south again.
Yeah, we had a nice couple of weeks of summer, and already it's a little gray, and then it might even rain tomorrow. And I wanted to do a nice big bike ride for my birthday, but I think that is now on hold. But it's
Yeah.
okay.
That's
All right,
I
so
think that's one thing about Seattle is just that like you have amazing days that you get, but then they don't fall on weekends.
yeah, exactly. I get to celebrate on the bus or something.
Right.
All right, all right. So we don't have Imran for the entire show today, so we're gonna change up our schedule and
Let's do it.
nerdy news that's gonna follow our AI first marketing segment. And usually we talk about how machines do things that we're just too lazy to do. But since we have Imran here, he has a really interesting perspective on AI and marketing and the future of like, let's call it even maybe vibe marketing.
Yeah,
That's
like that's
perfect.
like that's a big it's a big trend right now, and I think we started noticing it. We use AI quite a bit, and this is like I think Paul pulled up this article. I think this was on Kyle's Substack, but this article kind of captures the idea very well, which is the cost of like building software is kind of really going to zero, and I think for a lot of marketers, like it's becoming more accessible to kind of build out like pieces of software, mostly for internal workflows is what we have
Mm.
seen. Right, people use like N10 and like just like a bunch of other kind of tools. But I think what another thing that we are seeing, and we have ourselves started doing this as somebody who as people who do like founder-led marketing, is can you build
Mm.
software that's more customer facing, but but it's in the service of GTM, right? And so a classic example is, for example, I think one of these this article mentions ROI calculators. If you like marketers love these like tools like ROI calculators and a bunch of other things,
Mhm.
because they know the value of those tools in bringing like leads and like building relationships with prospects. But then historically, if you ask the marketer, like do you get you have all these crazy ideas about what kind of tools to build, but does your engineering team even have bandwidth or do that they can give you to kind of build it? And they haven't, right? Like marketers don't have access to engineering. The priority is like kind of it gets buried someplace below some product feature or whatever it is. And I think we are kind of seeing this shift where vibe coding is making vibe marketing more powerful. And I think one big thing that marketers can use now with vibe coding is like build these more customer facing lead magnets, and more complicated ones as well. Like don't stop just at an ROI calculator. You can actually build out like a freemium tool. And so like just give you an idea, like I'm not a I'm a labs coder, right? Like that's what I call myself. But I was able to develop a lead magnet for our own company as well, and I'll kind of share it. Like I've lost the window at this point, or my computer is kind of acting up here.
Yeah.
So
While
I'm
you're
gonna
looking
share a
for
link
that,
here. Yeah, I'll just put it in the private chat right there.
Yeah, sure. I'll pull that up.
Yeah, and
okay, cool.
if you wanna kind of put it, Paul, if you wanna put it in the chat. But like this is a vibe coding tool, that vibe coded tool that we built, and this is like a very small piece of Syft's functionality that we just are giving away for free. For example, it's a Chrome extension. It actually automates this like comment for reach kind of playbook that people use on LinkedIn quite a bit nowadays. So you can kind of use to kind of just to reach out to people who want to kind of get your content. So anyway, this was built like in maybe a couple of days. It was like some polishing and so on. But the main idea is that you can use these kind of tools now, or use vibe coding tools. This was built mostly with, I think, Claude Code, and the website was built with Claude Code as well. And I think this is the future. Like to me,
Yeah.
like marketers will be able to build this like lightweight products or tools that are adjacent to their main product, and like do these little experiments, right? Like you kind of give it away, this like free tools to your audience, and again, they're adjacent, they're not like the main product, right? And the reason why this can happen now is because software is incredibly easy to produce now. Also, software has recurring value, right? Like if you produce like a content, like a white paper or something like that, people read it once and then it's kind of done. But if you kind of build out a tool, like it just gives recurring value to people. The second thing is that you don't have to commit to some like heavyweight PLG strategy for this, right? Like you don't have to come in and say like, oh, we sell this big product and we have to kind of miniaturize it, and then we have to kind of price and package it, and then do like the whole PLG dance. Like you could just you build something very small. You don't have to kind of miniaturize your main product line or whatever it is. You don't have to come up with like pricing and packaging kind of conversations, and just like just give this away for free. So I guess that's kind of the second benefit of this. And then the third thing, which ties into AI, but from another angle, from my perspective, is me and Greg have talked about this, and we see this across a lot of our customers, is ChatGPT and Perplexity and all those LLMs are sending a lot of traffic now
Right.
to websites. And what we are seeing, and I have a few LinkedIn posts on my on my profile about this, is that this traffic is not only growing pretty fast, but this traffic is also super high intent and bottom of the funnel. Like, as in, if somebody comes from ChatGPT to your website, they know a lot about you because they have been researching you, in ChatGPT. And so by the time they come to your website, they're super well educated. They're pretty much bottom of the funnel, high intent. There are like studies, or there are like Vercel just actually shared, and Stripe shared some of their numbers. Like for Vercel, which is like one of the very big stack hostings providers, the creators of Next.js, 10% of their signups come from ChatGPT now. This number was 5% 2 months ago, and it was less than 1% 6 months prior to that. So there's like a curve there, like an exponential that's going on. But the more important thing is what they say is that the people who sign up once they come from ChatGPT, they have high intent, they stick around longer. And so now what can you do as a marketer for this new world? Like people are coming from ChatGPT, there are more of them going to come from ChatGPT. If they land on your website, you better convert them. Like, it's like sort of, and if you have like some of these lead magnets, then there's more of a higher probability for you to convert them, right? To give them something that establishes that first party relationship between you and them. And then once you have that relationship, then you can obviously like, sell them on the longer term horizon on your full product or full services. So anyways, those are the three things that I think I'll just make this like this trend towards like, wipe coded, software as a lead magnet, software as a lead magnet strategy, like be very viable going forward.
Yeah. I mean, you made a lot of great points. All things that we've discussed here. I want to go back to like the idea that resources are now, let's call them abundant. And I've been pushing this with people a lot, that like lean start, and I got roasted on I read it all the time. Like lean startup is based on the idea that resources are scarce, and they're not. And so I think that like changes everything. Like I'm 100% with you that like vibe coded tools and marketers creating software as like lead magnets, like there's a whole new world out there. So given like all of that, like what do you recommend for like, let's say early stage SaaS, indie SaaS, like people out there, they're trying to take advantage of stuff, and maybe don't know exactly where to start. Like what would you recommend that they do, other than use your tool to do the reply for lead gen magnet, which I did like and I did use it.
Yeah.
What other advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, for marketers, I think there is the idea of just, if you haven't done any vibe coding or whatever, right? Like then maybe like start with internal tools first, right? Like some internal workflows. There are tools that are sort of, somewhat like low code, no code kind of a things, like some workflows that you can build out. And so you can go do that. The but if you want to kind of build out like lead magnets, and the article that I shared, it actually talks about some of the tools there. But I would say go play with like, a Replit or Lovable. I think those two are very accessible for marketers. And start with something super simple, like, take something that is like, an ROI calculator is a very good, hello world kind of a program that you can kind of, a service that you can build. I know every marketer, wants an ROI calculator or something on their website. So I would start there. There is also like some other ideas, like you might have some interesting data set that you might want to kind of share with people, but like instead of just dumping it into like the giant report, like try to make like some sort of a nice application out of it, that people can kind of play with, right? So I guess that would be my other kind of suggestion in terms of like where to start. But I would say like start with something that you are
Oh,
already familiar with. Yeah. Oh, that's Flappy Nerds. Yeah, you could build Flappy Nerds. That's an amazing lead magnet. That definitely will give you a lot of engagement.
that was my vibe coded game. I agree
Cool.
100%. I think like marketers getting in and like playing with these tools and just trying to get a sense of how they work. And so yeah, I made this fun game. I challenged myself on Sunday. I was like, dude, can I do it? So and it wasn't that hard. In fact, like what I tell everyone is like it told me even how to deploy this on Squarespace.
You
So
did
don't
a
even
great
need
job
like
on this.
GitHub and all of that. So I
and
agree.
and you and you don't even have to like, you can start even like maybe you have an event coming up, or like you have some sort of one-time campaign that you're kind of running, right? And so you can kind of build something in the service of that campaign as well. Like, like if you're throwing like like that's a low risk way of doing it, because sometimes people are just like nervous about hanging stuff off their website, like on their main page or whatever it is. Like, just build something in service of like a one-time promotional event that you're doing or something. So there are different ways to kind of experiment and play with it. But I think it's like it's important to just get started and to see like where the technology is moving so fast, right? Which is the other thing I think that people don't understand, which is this is not a thing where you try it for like, on one weekend and then you kind of, like us, like, no, you have to kind of keep playing with it, because the things are moving so fast that
Right.
you might try something and today it's probably not super optimal, but like, in like a month or so it actually becomes much more plausible what you're trying to do. So you just have to kind of stay on that curve, because the frontier is moving just so fast, actually.
Yeah. I mean, like, ChatGPT's been out for the new 3.0, right? Is that 18 months or 20 months or something? And now it's not that long since the version that really caught fire.
Caught fire.
Oh, the
ChatGPT.
O3, you mean?
Yeah, true. Yeah. Right. So it's 03 is the
Pro.
one that
No,
really
O3,
was.
O3 just came out earlier, like, I think in Q1.
Oh, 2.5. Wasn't that the one who was? Well, I can't remember what. I don't remember.
Oh, you mean
Like, it was like
ChatGPT 3? You mean like the thing
The
that
original
really,
one.
the
Right.
original one? Yeah. That one came out in October 2022. Yes, I
Yeah,
distinctly.
no one understands the naming.
Yeah.
The naming is terrible. But I saw a post just a couple hours ago. The stat is that nobody was coding with AI a year ago, and that's true.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Unless
talking
you're
about
this
moving
weird
gas, right?
person.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw that tweet as well. I think there has been just a progression in the coding space. I think a year ago there were some people I know, like my CTO is very AI forward,
Right.
but we were using GitHub Copilot,
Yeah. Right.
but it was like just a smarter autocomplete is essentially how people were
Exactly.
using it. And then now where we are, like, which is what more agentic coding workflows, which are like just like you just tell it like I want to do this, and then it just
Yeah.
goes and does it. I think that's like pretty much a
It's crazy.
2025 phenomena, right? Like it's just not, and so it's just moving. It's moving so fast. Now the latest thing is like now you can do sub agents. So you just don't give it one task. You can kind of say, can you do these 5 things at the same time?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, and it can go and do 5 things at the same time as well. So like
it's moving so fast. I just hooked up my Copilot or my cursor with Slack. So now I can essentially ping my cursor from my Slack with a error message that I get from anywhere inside of my code base, and just tell it to fix the code directly in Slack. So I don't even have to.
You tell from Slack.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's like having an agent working for you.
Exactly. So my next move is I'm going to pick a couple of clients of mine and then just be like, here you go.
Yeah, there was a tweet yesterday. Somebody was saying that, like, I think it was Hiten, who's like one of these, entrepreneurs. He writes very insightful tweets. He was saying like he mistakenly opened Slack when he wants to open ChatGPT, and I replied to him. It's like, I think that it's like the reason why that happens, and it has happened with me as well, is because I think there is a convergence between those two platforms, right?
Right.
Because like we use Slack to talk to humans. Yeah. But I think increasingly, like, the other end of Slack is not going to be a human. It's going to be some agent. And that's why, like, ChatGPT and Slack, if you think about it, are like sort of very similar under the surface in a way.
Exactly.
Although they look different to us.
Yeah. Maybe, or you like talk to humans on Slack, and then once you make a decision collaboratively, you just tell the agent to now go do it.
Yeah. My mental model is all. Yeah, my mental model always is that, and we have some stuff coming out in our product. Like we have a very strong Slack integration in Syft, but like our mental model has always been like, imagine that you hired an intern, in France. How would you interact with that intern? You usually would just chat with them on Slack, and they would do stuff, and they would come back and whatever. Like you hired some remote person. And I think that's the mental model that you should use with AI agents. Is like, they are at your beck and call over Slack, and they do their stuff, and that's it.
Except they're in France, they'd be on vacation a lot more than
yes,
than my agent. But yeah, I think it's all mind blowing. The idea that like it's going to be commonplace to have agents that you interact with on Slack, and they're going to just feel like regular employees is just breaks my brain. Like it hurts. But what's interesting, I think, for like young people, it's going to be very normal. They're going to just like log into these tools, and they'll have friends that are agents, and they'll have coworkers who are real. I mean, it's like a whole new world. It's hard to even like really wrap your head around it. Interesting. Paul, anything else you want to add to this discussion, or should we maybe move on to some news items? There's some really great stuff to talk about.
Let's move on to the news item.
Yeah. So do we want to start with the Jassy stuff, or we should do the what was the post?
There's a couple great posts. So
the
we're
future of work with AI agents.
Yes, let me pull this
That
up
thing
real
was
quick.
intense.
It's
The
a little bit of an
Stanford survey.
intense post.
I don't know if you
Absolutely.
looked at this, Imran, but there was like a new survey that came out from Stanford, and what they interviewed 1,500 workers and AI experts about which jobs AI will replace and which ones will automate. And so, at least the way that this, let's say, the results of the survey or the analysis showed is that a lot of people perhaps have the wrong assumptions about how AI is going to play out. That was my interpretation. Because Paul, you and I, we looked at this, right? Some of the
Yeah.
charts were complicated to understand, but that's how I would frame it. Is that uh, there's some things that are really obvious, and we've been talking about them. Like AI is automating right now, and we're all getting a lot of value out of it. Like it's basically some very extended version of autocomplete, or I can go into ChatGPT and like write some copy. We all know that.
Yep.
But there's people that are building all kinds of startups, and this paper was like asking people, well, what kind of things do you want automated? And for the most part, if you ask a worker or an employee, they want things that are boring and repetitive and
Correct.
not fun to do. But that's not what like a lot of people are working on. It runs the gamut, but people work in a lot of areas that perhaps aren't necessarily great for automation. So anything
Exactly.
that would involve like, yeah, that involves like critical decision making. I mean, you start getting like the legal space, right? Like maybe you can't automate it, but maybe people should have some input in those decisions.
Yeah.
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 What do you want to
Yeah.
add, Paul? Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So there's a disconnect between what types of things AI companies are building versus what people actually want. So just to summarize this paper, is that the researchers discovered about only about 46% of tasks people want it to be completely taken over by AI. So, and these tasks are very, very repetitive tasks. So, think of like analytical work where you're just sifting through large quantities of data, doing the same calculations over and over again. AI is great at doing that. But if you look at all of the venture funded AI startups, it's disproportionately money's being invested into things like creative work, right? AI producing music, AI producing movies, uh, AI writing content, or even at very high level things like AI making decisions for you. So the paper is kind of calling out that uh, there is currently a major disconnect between what people want to adopt and want to use right now, which is I just want AI to be a helpful a partner in my day-to-day work, right?
Yeah.
People are saying that workers are saying automate my boring stuff, not the creative work.
So I guess like maybe the question for you, Imran, is like, what do you think about this perhaps Stanford researchers who have found what they think is a disconnect between like what Silicon Valley is focusing on and what workers would like them to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read the paper. I think when I saw it in the feed, and then I kind of quickly glanced through. That's
You
one
can just
thing that
use AI to summarize it, though. You
no,
don't
I
have
mean,
to read
that's
the whole
one thing
thing.
that your PhD trains you very well, which is like, just look at the abstract, and you look at the conclusions, and then like you look
Yeah,
at the three charts, and it's like, okay, I got it. I think there is I like the way they framed it, which is that like, okay, well, there are tasks that are very repetitive and they're low complexity, and humans want them automated. And I think a lot of people are working on that front. And I think that's where I think that I don't think there's a lot of divergence there in terms of like what people are trying to, all the startups that are coming in, obviously in the GTM space, like we are one of them. Like we are looking for those kind of tasks, right? Like sort of low complexity, happen very often. And humans don't want to do them. All right. A classic one is like, inbound marketing, or inbound, like, inbound SDR, for example, or any of those, like, like very repetitive, very common, low complexity, like, like somebody raises their hand, you want to kind of schedule a meeting, like an AI agent can kind of do that very well now. I think there was this other kind of, and I guess I just so that I can answer your question, Greg, I think your question kind of it says that like there's a disconnect between what is being innovated upon and what the study is kind of telling us, right? And
that's what they're trying to say. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I kind of really, I don't know, at least in my bubble, I don't see that as much, where I still think that majority of stuff is actually in that green light zone of like very repetitive, and so on. I think the fundamental issue is just that the technology is kind of just moving so fast that there are more things that are being brought into the sort of the complexity, like something that was high complexity is now doable by AI. But there is like because it is high complexity, humans don't do it often, in my opinion. But then if it becomes automatable, maybe we would do more of it. And I think some of these papers just don't kind of they don't capture that loop very well, in my opinion.
Do you have an example?
Like what would be like super
this is a good, I think this is a good thought process. Do you have like any kind of example?
I mean, I think everything that has transpired so far is like that. Like like writing was sucked for a lot of people, including myself, right? Like you say, like I want to write an article which is like super SEO friendly, blah blah. Any kind of creative writing was like was difficult before, and we didn't do a lot of it. And now we can, and I'm not saying it's completely automated away, but nobody starts with a blank slate, right? Nobody gets stuck generally, right? Like, I mean, it's just like there is less friction, and so like we write more because of AI. I think we write better on average with AI. And so I think and I'm not talking about just like garbage fluff that people just completely auto-generate with AI. I'm talking about like people who kind of really are like using AI as a thought partner and so on. So I think that's one example. It looks very trivial now, but it was an issue like 2 years ago. Same with software. We were just talking about software earlier. Like like building like complicated software was just like that was a lot of work to kind of ship a feature. Like you have to kind of get involved, like 3 people, like product design, blah blah, engineering, to kind of ship something. It would take like 15 meetings and like God knows how many strategy sessions. And now people just move much faster because what was a complicated thing like is not super complicated, and we'll write way more software because of it. And so I think these studies are like interesting, but they just don't capture that.
My take is that this study, it's very academic in the sense that like it's good because I think they're trying to counterbalance some of the over enthusiasm that executives in Silicon Valley has for AI. So I appreciate that. But on the other hand, I think it just shows that like they don't understand venture capital and investing at all. And I wrote something a long time ago about this. Like it was basically titled "Why Smart Investors Fund Dumb Ideas." And I think that like, yeah, they don't get Silicon Valley, right? Like Silicon Valley needs a bet in every category. So of course, like some of them are, because I chart it, there is dispersion across everything, and like maybe there's emphasis in this one quadrant that they claim are the dumb ones or something, dumb investments. But like Silicon Valley always invests in every category. That's how like the venture firms at like they see it like an investment class. Like we need a legal option, we need a creative option, we need a investment in this class, right? And they put it into everything. But I think for me, what's more fundamental about venture capital that very few people understand is that big companies are working on smart innovations. So obvious innovations are going to be captured by big companies. And that could be maybe the CD-ROM or the iPhone. There's so many examples of like a big company produced an incredible innovation, brought it to market, and is very successful. Those are all the obvious ones. What Silicon Valley does is find the non-obvious ones. And the way to find the non-obvious one is you have to look at like the stupid ideas. And some of them are just not that stupid and they work. And in my opinion, that the ultimate example is the website that we love, Twitter. That was like not a smart idea. It was kind of stupid. It was like, oh my God, a 30 character micro blog that I can only read on text. When it came out, like it was like text message based. It was the craziest idea.
It was weird. That's not Facebook.
It's silly, but it was so
Not blog.
different and so weird and so new that it took off, right? And for me, it's an excellent example of like an idea that's like, it's kind of dumb, but like just interesting enough that it created a whole new category and a whole new way for people to communicate. And so I think that that's what this like report doesn't get. I think it's important to point that out, but I do appreciate them trying to temper some of the like maybe over enthusiasm with people claiming they're going to automate everything. Like it was very obvious to me, and I feel comfortable saying like Klarna went too far, and it was very clear that like they were making these statements, you know, perhaps like to juice their IPO or something, and
Right.
convince people that they were more profitable than maybe they were. And so they were like, oh, we're going to replace all these positions with AI, and made all these claims, and then it kind of like I think significantly backpedaled actually. If they went from, hey, we're going to get rid of like all these positions to now we're actually rehiring customer service because the results weren't very good, it's pretty interesting. Or it's a good example of like, let's call it the over enthusiasm for AI with some people.
Yeah,
I
that's
think there's also like a structural issue with studies like this as well. Sorry, Paul, I spoke over you.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I think one thing that's like a lot of these studies, like obviously you're asking the workers directly. And so there is like, I think two things with it. One is like, obviously there is the sort of the self-preservation aspect of it, or like, but I think the more important one also is that like they might not be aware of a lot of AI is just moving so fast. They just don't know what are the capabilities of the models, right? And so like there's just a lot of like biases that kind of come into play with like some of these things, like with just like the way the study is kind of structured, right? But so I think you have to kind of discount for some of those facts as well. Like it might be better to kind of sometimes ask these questions to somebody who's like less in a like, you know, it's a little bit more outside of the system in general, right? Like go ask like the decision makers perspective. It's like, okay, where are we kind of seeing inefficiencies that, you know, like, so like there's just like that aspect of it as well. But I don't know. I mean, it's a I don't think I agreed with a lot of what the paper was trying to say. Like it's just that I think I think startups are working on stuff that is I don't know. I that is very that's very repeatable. I think is like where a lot of research, where a lot of productionization is going on. I think there is a lot of like the other kind of stuff that's happening, which is like high complexity, it doesn't happen often kind of stuff. And I think foundation model companies are doing a lot of that stuff, right? Like cracking like exams and like, you know, hard mathematical problems and like that kind of stuff is happening. But I think that's kind of more happening on the sort of the like the open AIs and the Anthropics of the world are kind of spending money on that kind of stuff rather than sort of like, you know, venture-backed startups generally.
Yeah, I mean, you're dead on with the bias, right? It's like if you go to workers and say like, "Do you guys want to be replaced by AI?" They go like, "Not really, but can it do some of these like really boring things they don't like to do?" Yeah, it's very obvious. Okay, Paul, should we move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
We have a related news item.
Very related, actually. Also a little bit of paradoxical, right? I'll share the news article here, which is the headline is AI will shrink Amazon's workforce in the coming years, said the CEO Jassy. Following up to everything that we just discussed, where Klarna hired back some of the 700 or so humans that they fired for AI. So I guess the real question here is: do you think that this did Jassy say? First of all, like, would you believe that this is true? Where Amazon's main reason for laying off all of these employees is because of AI, and will they hire them back in half a year or a year or so? What's your takes?
I mean, as a former Amazon employee, right? Like, what do you think about this?
This is for me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think Amazon is one of those. I worked there. It was the first place where I worked in my career, and it's a company that is like very much invested in operational excellence and efficiency, right? Like people forget, like Amazon's background is in, like, it's essentially an e-commerce, like in company, and so they really care about their margins, and their whole strategy in a way is like, there's a Bezos quote, which is your margin is my opportunity. And so, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they are of all the big companies, they are the ones that kind of go and like try to get as much out of AI as possible, because I think their business model is just intrinsic, like just very much tied with that efficiency philosophy, right? Unlike, say, Google, which pretty much has a monopoly on like certain businesses. I don't think Amazon operates in that kind of a business in general, right? Not on the commerce side, not even on the cloud side. It's very competitive now. So I do agree with like what they are trying to say, which is that they will kind of use AI to kind of shrink their workforce as much as possible. But again, I think it's just like a lot of it is just gonna get. I don't know. I think, again, it's like, what is it, like that phenomena that we were talking about, right? Like, which is, I think the term for it is Jevons paradox, which is like, if something is like, it's like if you go talk to Sam Altman, he'll just say like, yeah, we'll lose the jobs that we have, but we'll make better jobs, other kind of jobs. And so I think that's kind of the that's the big unknown, right? Like, it's just sort of like, okay, we are just thinking in terms of current jobs, because that's all we can envision right now. It's like, okay, this job, yeah, we'll replace it, but a lot of people just don't know what other resources, what other kind of jobs kind of come out of this glut of resources that we'll have, and the glut of tokens that we'll have at our disposal. So I don't know. My guess would be like companies probably stay at flat head count, but it just gets redistributed to job functions that are different than how we kind of imagine. Like, that would be my guess.
Yeah, I think he basically hits on all those points in his own memo. I think that the media likes to frame it as like the sky's falling. I think that, like, I find it refreshing that a CEO is like being balanced, and let's even say nuanced in how he's communicating and trying to like tell people about like maybe something they don't want to hear. I think that's great. I think he should be clear about like where he thinks the business is going, and he's speaking to both, let's say, shareholders and employees. And he hit on all the points that you hit on, that which is like, we don't know exactly how it's going to work today. The mood seems to be that everyone thinks it's going to swing in this direction. He even says, like, educate yourself about AI. It's obvious some jobs will go away and new jobs will emerge. And to highest level, I agree 100% with you that like new jobs will emerge. I think that all of this, my personal opinion, I guess, is that, yeah, and then you can chime in, is that all of the, like, this like like labor force slack in the white collar job area is just over hiring from 2021 and the end of ZERP. I don't think it's related to AI at all. I think AI is a great excuse, and there's a lot of efficiency, and there's a lot of like desire, or there's like a mood that people see that they need to be efficient, and there's a threat to like motivate employees. But I think that most companies are just going through this transition where you went from the ZERP era where money was free. And so because of that, it was very real that people were hiring as rapidly as they could and spending as rapidly as they could, because there was a lot of market share that, or at least perception that they needed to grow fast, right? And that was like WeWork or Uber or DoorDash or any of these companies. And so we're just in a very different business environment where there's not the same kind of competitive pressures. Like, we're not having these like unicorns minted once a week that need to hire people, right? So there's just not the same competitive pressures to drive a lot of different factors in the job market, right? And so I don't really think that it's AI. There's some on the margins things happening with AI, where there's a reduction in some perhaps job needs, I think. But I agree with you that ultimately all the slack will get used up. It's like when you increase the capacity of a freeway, it ultimately just accommodates more cars. And I think it's exactly what will happen here. There's, like I said, maybe even the truck drivers are going to go away. You guys remember that narrative? That's from like 9
Right.
years ago. That's a long time ago. Like, we still have truck drivers. And the more that I dug into it, so I was very curious because I didn't really buy that narrative at all. You need the truck driver to like unload the truck. So unless like we have Optimus driving these things, like there's a lot that has to happen to get to a world where like truck driving is completely automated 100%. And maybe someday we'll get there, but we're not anywhere near as close as perhaps some people wanted us to think even 8 years ago.
Yeah, I think that another sort of parallel is that like the business process or offshoring industry, right? Like just sort of like that purely works on economics as well. Like you just cheaper labor offshore, like contractors and all of that stuff, and I mean those are like in a way kind of tokens as well. They're a little bit more expensive, but like they have been available, and like, and I mean that hasn't really like gone, and like like yes, it has over a period of time, like but I think this people overestimate the time horizon on which like these things play out. Like it just takes a while, right? Just sort of like even like things that like right now obviously in the news, like the hollowing out of American manufacturing prowess, like that happened over a long period of time as well. So like just I think these things just kind of play out over a longer time period. I think counterintuitively what this will do is, and I know Amazon has a lot of like a big like labor workforce that is not permanent. Like they do like a lot of like contractors
Yeah.
and other
Contracting.
stuff. Yeah, but I think what's going to happen is um, this will depress, or this will set back emerging economies that were going to use services as a way to kind of bring their standards up very very quickly. Like I grew up in India, and like India has a huge services industry, right? In software, in like calling centers and all that stuff. Like same with like and like Philippines and Thailand and all of those countries, and they use like these services things to kind of really bring people up. And I think I'm just somewhat worried that like this kind of dampens their growth a little bit going forward, because like a lot of what was going to be like outsourced now kind of can be done like a bit more efficiently, like probably just in-house or something like that. So I think those are some of the like side effects that people just don't think. Like same thing with software, right? Like you could just write like some, if you wanted to write some simple like internal software.
Yeah.
A fair amount of companies, like they will contract it out to like they'll offshore it, but now they can just build it in house with AI.
Right.
So I think there are those effects that like I think probably are not as well understood.
Yeah. Even in those areas. So a good example is QA. In software, there's a ton of QA that's offshored, and the chatter or the wish is that AI will first of all completely take over that entire industry, automate it. It's still left to be seen if that is doable, because even with QA, there's so much nuance that you need the human mind. A good QA engineer pays for itself. That's like the phrase that everyone says in software. So even if that's like, if QA cannot be outsourced to AI, then very very few things in the software could be completely outsourced to AI. That's kind of like the paradox.
What is it? Steelman it? I would take the other side because I think you made some good points, Imran in particular, and you did too, Paul. But so here's the other side is that, and because I worked for companies headquartered in India, and I've been to India many times, right? And worked with a lot of people over there. And like, so when I first started working with people in India, that was like 2009. It was a long time ago. And so the primary market was, or at least with the perception was like, it's this outsourced market, right? But it's come a long way, and now it's like an excellent market on its own for high tech startups, and it's really become a very different than it perhaps was perceived. And I don't know if like everyone in, let's say, America has caught up with like the fact that a lot of these emerging markets have come a long way since they were like the outsourced markets. And India's like demographics mean that like it's going to be a leader in the future in a way that China's demographics aren't going in that direction, right? And so I think the
Right.
long term like relationship and economic I don't know value of the United States and India working together is I'm like very excited about it. I think it's gonna be really cool. There's gonna be all kinds of stuff that happening. I don't think people are necessarily see that. And I think that's happening like in Indonesia and Grab and that company SE, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff happening that wasn't happening. So it's the other side to it. It's going to have an impact, just like it's going to have an impact here. But how
Yeah, I think,
much? And
yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think that's the counterbalancing argument, right? And I think that to a certain extent that happened with China as well, where like China, like,
correct.
you know, like domestic consumption increases. And so their own internal markets are huge because like, you know, India and China and everybody like South, like those countries have like huge populations. And so their internal market can support their growth in a way, right? So I think that's a fair point. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that shift, like, you know, like where China was like just like now they have a very robust internal economy and they can just produce and sell for themselves. And I think that the same trend happens, like you said, like in services with India as well. There are Indian software startups that are not just like, it started with offshoring, obviously. And we had like the big three in India that like, just like we have the big four here, they're like big three in offshoring in India. But now like there are lots of innovative Indian startups that kind of build software for the local economy, as well as like obviously they export it out as well, like, you know, to like Zoho, for example, is a very famous example,
Yeah.
based out of India. And it's a SaaS that is like global now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, Paul, I don't know if you work with a lot of offshore people, but I've been working with people, and somehow I stumbled into like a group of people in Eastern Europe that I work with out of like Serbia and Hungary, and they're excellent to work with. There's even
Yeah.
one, like, he's a kid, he's like in college, goes to an engineering program in like Hungary, but he's from the Middle East and he's working on this interesting startup. And one of the primary value propositions is that he supports a bunch of languages that like an American startup wouldn't necessarily support. And I was like, dude, I think you're like really onto something. And then we were talking, his English is very good. And I was like, is Arabic your like first language? He's like, oh, of course, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, you should go to Dubai and get funded and like be a player. Like if you can support Arabic and all these European languages and like have this kind of different kind of approach and like a typical American company would do, there's a big market. So at a high level, I'm really excited. I think that there's all kinds of stuff that's happening, and AI is going to enable
Yeah.
a really exciting future with all kinds
Right.
of startups, and they'll be able to focus on these markets, because the core for me here was that AI and translation
It's a solved problem.
yes, it's a problem that AI can solve very easily. So the idea that you could have these startups now, that the language and like localization piece isn't anywhere near as expensive as it used to be. And so when I did a lot of global marketing, like that was always this giant blind item that we got nothing for it. I was always so frustrated. I'm like, gotta spend all this money translated, and then I had to do different versions of Spanish. Like this is just so frustrating. So now that I don't have to have this giant line item, I could just focus on, spending more on marketing or whatever and getting the product in front of people, and the translation can happen. Like there's just all kinds of interesting avenues I think AI will unlock, coupled with globalization.
I see. Yeah, that's actually like a really interesting takeaway. I think so. The direct translation jobs will be completely gone, but I don't think AI can replace the cultural nuance that comes with the translation. Right. So
Yeah,
like
which I think will, yeah, but
it will be rolled into, let's say, design now, right? You can't, let's say you're building a web page or a web application. You can translate it in all the language now very, very quickly, but doesn't mean that the same design will work across all countries.
yeah, you can put more effort into like doing the localization. You can put more effort into localization rather than just translation, right? There's a lot more that needs to
Correct.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think that's what AI is helping us to do right now, right? Like our bottleneck, the goalpost of the bottleneck will move, down somewhere else. So like you're initially you wouldn't even take on this project because translating into 150 languages is impossible. But now you can, and now you need to aggregate all of that effort into like maybe localized customization for 10 different regions. That's still a ton of work.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Great discussion. Okay, should we move on to Reddit?
Our favorite
All right.
Reddit thread.
You gonna take off?
I'm gonna duck out here. But thanks
Awesome,
for
man.
having me.
Awesome.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
All right. See ya.
Yeah, we can't not do the Reddit segment.
Yeah, it's perfect time. Perfect wrap
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. All right. Our favorite Reddit threads, where we doom scroll Reddit so you don't have to.
I love that.
All right. Is this the one?
Yeah, let me share this. The building public isn't a good idea. Here's my
Oh,
experience.
yes. So the guy wrote the thread about building in public, right? Not a good idea. Here's my experience.
Right.
I built a product that made $18,000 and someone copied it. Do we really need to read the rest of this, or is like?
No,
or
I
does
think that
summarize
tells
it
the
right
entire
there?
story. Yeah.
That's really funny. You and I started actually chatting a lot about build in public and some of the downfall of it.
Yeah. I mean, especially after our discussion today, where building is no longer a mold. Maybe this is a good thing. I'm gonna steelman this, right? Where
Okay.
building public isn't a good idea. I think that's scarcity mindset. In where you still think that your moat is the fact that you built something. I think there's no unique ideas out there anymore. I think execution still matters, but it's really about the distribution. So if distribution is the most important thing and getting people's attention, then building public is a good way to get distribution and people's attention. It's the easiest way to market your product is to build it in public.
I mean, I think so. What do I think? I feel like, okay, a couple of things. I feel this trend has started to just kind of decline,
Sure.
and we're in
Right.
it's the everything works in the Gartner life cycle curve, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all this excitement, enthusiasm built in public, and then we reach the peak of inflated expectations, and now we're headed into the trough of disillusionment where people are like, oh my God, I built in public and it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think it's part of the cycle, and that people just aren't as excited about building public. I even think like this year will probably mark the like low point in just general enthusiasm for startups. I mean, in Silicon Valley, AI startups are really hot, but beyond that, it's not something that everyone is as enthusiastic about as they were perhaps in the past. And I've seen this kind of cycle come and go, right?
Right.
And so I think it's part of that. There's just this like general kind of malaise. It's hard to raise money. Startups are hard to build. They're not that cool anymore. And so, yeah, build in public. The other point I wanted to make was like, it was on This Week in Startups. Jason Calacanis maybe yesterday was talking about maybe the company that we could like perhaps say that they popularized. I don't know if they invented build in public, but Buffer, they have that social media management tool.
Yeah.
And they went really extreme with this transparency approach, like posted
Radical
all the employees.
transparency. Right.
Right. Yeah, that's the term you used, right? They posted all the salaries and equity structure that people like. They did some crazy stuff that like I just would not be comfortable with like posting people's salaries and stuff. It's just I just don't get comfortable with it. But
yeah, I think so. Sorry to cut you off. I think
go for
Peter
it.
Thiel actually got this exactly correct. You want to build in public when you're small, right? You can be transparent, you can market yourself, you can show success, you want to build yourself up if you have momentum, you want to tell everybody that look how well I'm doing, show all the momentum. But then after a while, when you're big, when you're, let's say, a monopoly, it's actually the complete opposite. You should hide all your secrets.
Yeah, it's like a hack. It's a hack
Right.
when you're small and you show transparency, and then you can show traction. You're like,
You
I
just
got
show
18.
momentum, traction. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm growing 100% month over month. Look at like I'm doubling my revenue count, customers retention, uh, employee satisfaction. All of these things roll into the story that you want to tell. You're super successful, but then eventually you should maybe step back a little bit, right? Because then it's scrutiny.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I think that like, I mean, and like, look, even like with Buffer, I think it's a good example where they got a lot of traction for it, and
Right.
they kept being radically transparent, and they've just that company's just gone in a different direction. A lot of other companies go too. Like, I don't think they raised a lot of money. They raised some money, and then they were like, they just kind of ran it as a successful high tech company,
Right.
and just didn't, let's say, play the venture game or try to raise more and try to go public or something like that. So they kind of took a different approach too, where that worked for them. And so I guess at a high level, I like the idea that like, you can, whatever works for you, do, right? Build in public is working for you, great. And then
Yeah.
don't be dogmatic. Like if there's a point where it doesn't work for you, don't do it anymore, right? I feel like sometimes people get very absolute, like, well, if you make this decision, you have to like keep doing it and stuff. But that's ridiculous.
Correct. I think like people lose sight of what's the most important thing, and also I think it's just like once people start adopting something, like building public, the definition changes. So like there's so many different definitions now, right? Especially maybe it started in the software industry, and now I've heard financial advisors are coming on and jumping on this. E-commerce founders are jumping on the building public. Factory owners or some of the VC-backed factory owners
What?
are building public. They're building a factory in public. There's a YouTube series of I think a guy that makes, I don't know, something, and he's building in public on how he runs his entire factory. It's interesting. It gets a lot of views, but I think the definition just completely changed over the time to
Yeah, I don't know.
whatever
I don't know.
serves.
So I mean, Jason Calacanis pointed out a point that
Yeah.
it's hard to prove, but he felt that like if Buffer wasn't so vocal about how much money they're making, they would have less competitors, and that is what
Right.
the guy identifies in this thread as well. He says that like if you post, I think this is probably some of the like revenue numbers people post.
Yeah.
That people can copy if they think you're onto something, they will copy you, which could hurt your business, right? Like, because that was even Jason was saying is like, let's say they still have a great business, but if maybe they hadn't been so vocal about how much money they're making, they might make more. That it might have pushed the price down for
Right.
that product and put a lot of
Right.
people into it. So I
Yep.
think I would generally agree. Maybe I'm just old too. Like sharing financial information is just very taboo, and it seems very like unsophisticated, or it's just something that is the world that I grew up in, like just not, it was just not something you did. You just didn't really talk about these things. And I know young people, like they share their bank account screen capture each other and everything. And like, I don't do any of that at all.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of in that
Especially
camp
the
where,
hackers on X, where every single one of your revenue numbers over a period of time can be tracked back. I've seen it work really well, right? Like, I've seen slowly raising your pricing public is a good strategy. So you could be like, hey, right now I'm only offering a $500 plan for the next 10 people, and then I raise it to 1,000, 2,000. I think that's probably the best way to signal and building public
yeah,
without revealing how much you're making. People can do the mental gymnastics if they want to, right? Like, okay, you close 10 spots at 500, you're probably making $5,000 a month. I think that's the proper way to quote unquote building public.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm very careful about what I share publicly. There's just some
100%.
information I just don't want to share. I just don't think it's appropriate. I don't, and it might not be logical, but like,
I think it's
that's
perfectly
just how
logical. You also
I
don't know
feel about it.
who's watching, who's listening,
I just like, I come from this world where like it seems just impolite. It's very it's very like it's very like new money versus old money. I don't know if this makes sense anymore, but like
Yeah, West Coast versus it's a little bit of West Coast versus East Coast mentality.
yeah, like where I grew up
Right.
in New York too, like old money tended to be understated, and they wanted to just be viewed as like regular people, or understated is a better term than regular people.
Yeah.
And then new money very flashy and showy, and that was always been the kind of like
Yeah.
stereotype.
Right.
And they look down upon new money, right? And so maybe that's where some of my like perception comes from, like, is that if you're too flashy and vocal about your startup and how much money you're making, all that, it just seems very new money.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Awesome. Oh, we're past the hour. Okay, so what do we have left on our schedule?
I think we're
we
right
good?
on time.
Do we need to do our meme of the
week? Let's do it.
All right.
Oh, I love the meme of the week.
Oh yeah, this was good. Are you gonna share it?
Yeah, I'm pulling that up.
All right. All right. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Hilarious.
Okay. Oh my God. The Iranian memes were pretty funny. I was having a good time with these ones. That account was pretty good too. There were a couple other that were like,
yeah. It's just
amazing. Yeah. I thought this was good, right? If people aren't aware, like Circle launched a stable coin, or they went public, they did launch one, and then the regulation changed around stable coins too, and a bunch of like crypto stocks went to the moon. And so I found this one quite funny.
I love the
actually I retweeted this. I said, oh, so that's what all the fuss is about.
Yeah. I actually really like your latest one. You had another one that's really
okay, this one's good.
Hilarious.
This one's good. Can you make that one bigger?
Yeah. This is the Baywatch one, but
the Baywatch one, yeah, that was good too. Yeah, everyone was sharing all of those like pre-Iranian revolution photos of like people on the beach and stuff.
Yeah, this is hilarious.
Yeah, that was funny. I thought that was funny. It's basically Pam Anderson Baywatch, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love these meme formats where you're just posting something completely wrong. I've seen you post a few ones where it's like, I love, this is like Sicily, Italy or something. And it's a photo of some like American town.
Yeah, those have been good. I did one. Yeah, it was Cinque Terre in Italy.
Yeah.
I posted it and I said, "Oh, Burlington, Vermont is beautiful at this time of year." Where my mother lives there, and so I know Burlington quite well, like a little tiny town in Vermont.
Right.
And it was really funny. That was like the usage was different on Twitter. There was all these people replying with like, "That's not Burlington, Vermont." And I kept telling them like, "It totally is. Look closely." And then I would like point out something about Vermont. And then I had a bunch of people actually reply with like, "Oh my God," like they figured out that like I knew the town.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Quite well. And actually, I actually met a few people from that thread. Like I actually met a guy that's like an investor. So the lesson there is like, hilarious. If you do some hilarious shit posting like that, you can actually like shit post your way to seed.
100%.
I didn't raise seed, but like it's totally possible. I believe in it. All right. That was fun.
Love it.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Take care.